Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's SEJ webinar. With us today, we have Tom Capper from Stats. Nice to see you, Tom.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice to have you back again. I hear you're on the West Coast this week.
Yeah, I'm decanted from my usual London office into Vancouver just for the week.
Amazing. It's nice to be on the same time zone. So today we'll be going over how to win brand visibility in AI search, AIOs, LLMs, and the new SEO landscape. Tom, give you a quick chance to introduce yourself, and then I'll take care of some housekeeping while some of our attendees are coming into the room still.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I'm Tom Capper. I've been at Moz for 5 years. Before that, I was agency side SEO for too long, about a decade. And I work as a senior search scientist at Stat and Moz. So I work on a lot of our product innovation, a lot of our sort of new features and data that we're working on in the background. And that's a lot of what I'll be talking about today as well.
Amazing. So before Tom gets started, just want to review the format of today's webinar. First of all, I see there's some participation in the chat area. Please feel free to type where you're coming from, whether it's somewhere in the States, the UK, a little bit more international. So we see some folks that are chiming in already. Chicago, Bristol, Pakistan, all over the place, Brazil. So great to have you all here. Also, we will be launching a poll very early on in today's webinar. I'd love to have full participation there. It helps Tom kind of craft his delivery and everything else and understand more about the audience. When you have questions, we will be hosting a live Q&A at the end of today's presentation, as well as how do you coin it, Tom, a choose your own adventure breakout room?
Yeah.
Yep. So Tom will be getting into that a little bit longer or in a little bit. But as Tom's presenting, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box. After the presentation's over, we'll be hosting a live Q&A session with Tom as well. And there are 2 handouts, AIO traffic detection kit from Stat/Moz, as well as an overview of Stat, the ultimate SERP analytics tool. And as a friendly reminder, you'll see under time of the presentation, there are about 6 emojis here. Feel free to press the smiley face, the heart, the raise the roof, whatever it may be based upon Tom's presentation. And then Tom, I'm going to hand things off to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lauren. So yeah, this is a bit of what we're going to be talking about today. So we're fortunate at Stat to have access to a wealth of data of what's going on in the SERPs and in AI search in this year, in 2025 so far, and it has been quite the year. So we're going to be talking through some of what we're seeing and what it's going to mean for us. The spoiler is that obviously top of funnel organic marketing is looking pretty different at the end of 2025 to the start. So that's where we're going to be most focused. And then as Lauren said, at the end of my talks, I'm going to be speaking for about 25 minutes. At the end of my talk, we have a choose your own adventure. So you can either, if you do nothing, if you click nothing, you'll stay here with me and Lauren, and we'll do some Q&A based on the talk from your questions, I hope, in the sidebar. Or you'll get a little button that allows you to go through to a breakout room. If you go through to the breakout room, then you'll be with my fabulous colleagues, Maddie and Kanar, and they're going to be talking about some of how you can do what I've been referencing in app. So it's going to be a bit more of a demonstration, a bit more practical, whereas we'll keep the Q&A will be a little bit more abstracted and more around sort of what we've covered in the talk. So before we go any further, we're just going to put out a little poll for you guys. So I just want you to tell me how much you think AI overviews have gone up in prevalence this year. So there is a few different answers here that we'll come to in the talk, but I'm just curious to see what you guys think. Hopefully you can see that poll now. Yeah, I can see some people coming in with their answers. Looks like you're pretty divided, which is reasonable. It's a difficult question. So yeah, we'll come back to that as we go on. So the big story of this year, the big story all of us are already aware of, is the so-called Great Decoupling in a Google search. So you've probably all seen charts that look a little bit like this one. So I don't even have to label this, so a lot of you will know what it is, but you can see that there's a downwards blue line, that's clicks, and there's an upwards pink line, and that's impressions. So all this is saying is that, for a long time as SEOs, we've been used to these things moving together. We've been used to it being, okay, I get more rankings, I rank some more keywords, I improve my rankings. That means I get more impressions and as a result, more impressions, I get more clicks. Ranking higher gets me more of everything. And that relationship has started to fray, and a lot of people are seeing that their impressions go up and their clicks go down. And this is primarily driven by AI overviews. And it's a problem because for a lot of sites, clicks are the conversion. It's all very well to say, oh, well, maybe I get fewer clicks, but in the long run, I'm still going to, this is just top of funnel. In the long run, I'm still going to make the conversion. It just, the funnel works a bit differently now. But there's so many sites that we've come to be familiar with, especially you think about sectors like publishing or affiliate or so many of the aggregators. There's so many of these types of website where they're monetized by display advertising perhaps, or by affiliate links, and the click is the conversion. So that this is a really big deal for the web as an ecosystem. As I was saying, this is driven by AI overviews. The yellow line that I've added to this chart, this is AI overviews from Mozcast, so the Mozcast keyword set, but tracked in stat. And you can see that it's going up pretty much with this impressions line, which is also negatively correlated with the clicks line, and that's not a coincidence. As more and more keywords have gained AI overviews, people have been reporting more and more impressions from those AI overviews, and those impressions typically do not result in a click. So just looking at the poll now as it stands, it looks like 75% won. People think AIOs went up by 75%. So we'll hold that number in mind as we go. So the Great Decoupling is the big news story in SEO of 2025, and it is about SERP changes. It's about search features, and especially AIOs. So let's get into that in a little bit more depth. To me, the elephant in the room is position one. We've often talked about search features being in various positions and being in position one, but it's not really been the case that position one is so big until now. Feature snippets were in position one were nowhere near as dominant as an AI overview is in position one. So really, you have to focus on that one position to tell the story here. If we look at organic share of top 10, so I've got a few charts like this, so I'll just explain how you can read them. So in the blue line is the share of results in January, and the green line is the share results in July. So this is just the first half of 2025. This is not a long period of time we're talking about here. But you can see that the top 10 stayed somewhat stable in terms of the share of top 10 results. So it looks okay when you look at it like this. But when we look at rank one, we can see, and those of you that put 75%, you can see AI overviews went from 10% of rank one results to 19% of rank one results. Now, it's worth saying this data, as I said, is still from the Mozcast corpus, which is quite commercial head terms, but then tracked in stat in the UK and the US on desktop and smartphone. So the 19%, as we'll come to, that's actually quite a low number to AI overviews. And that's because these are quite commercial terms. These are terms that Google is selling ads against, typically. So you can see that that's a 90% increase that we've seen on this chart. And we'll see a few other variants of this answer as we go. But people in the poll did okay, actually. That 90% is not too far off. But you also have to think about the drop from 49 to 41 for organic. And especially when organic generates clicks, typically, and others don't typically. The picture actually gets worse the more we dig in. So I mentioned earlier sort of the funnel and how the top of the funnel is most affected. So just as a reminder, this is a sort of visualization of what a funnel looks like in organic search. We've got informational queries at the top, that's the top of funnel. Then it goes down through commercial, transactional, and then navigational would be sort of post-purchase, perhaps, your branded queries. And for the purpose of this data, I'm applying the Moz search intent API, which is something that you could do yourself with your own ranking stage as well if you wanted to. So when we look at only informational, only top of funnel, see a much bigger absolute difference. So organic has seen this big drop from 36% at position 1 to 23% at position 1. AIOs, actually proportionally, this is closer to the 75 that a lot of people guessed, because it started quite high in January as well. In January, AIOs were disproportionately only really for informational queries. But this is still a huge change over just 6 months, right? Just 6 months. This is, if you were competing for top of the funnel organic, you've maybe lost 50%. And this is exactly what people are saying. That this is what that great decoupling chart shows, just displayed a different way. And that way is what feature, what type of result is actually in position 1. Because at the start of the year, the most common answer to that question was still organic. By July, the most common answer to that question was already AIOs, right? So it completely flipped just in those 6 months. So you might reasonably be thinking now, okay, great. Are there any rocks I can hide under? Is anything safe? Unfortunately, this year has mainly been a story of AIOs sort of expanding into new areas. So in January, law, health, and science were the sort of peak AIO verticals, which is already quite shocking because those are your money or your life queries, right? These three are still the peak verticals in July, but what's shocking is how everything else has caught up. I might have told you in January, and I appreciate it might be difficult for you to see some of these. I might have told you, for example, that vehicles was a relatively safe vertical for AIOs in January, and it's gone from 3% to 26%. So it's a sort of huge relative difference. And a lot of these other sort of previously safe, other previously safe verticals have also caught up. It's not just vehicles. Intents as well show a very similar story. So we can see, we've gone from 23 to 43% for informational. Again, that's similar to that 75% number. But further down the funnel, where previously AIOs were not so present, we've gone from 5% to 12%. That's more than 100%. 3% to 11%. That's more than 200%. So we've got these much bigger changes further down the funnel in relative terms. That sort of shows the direction of movement here. So some things are stable there. A few things to call out. One is local packs. If you're doing local SEO, I think you're in a good spot. Not only is local packs pretty stable in their percentage of position 1 right now, but also we can see that they're, when we've seen Google experiment with AI local features, they're based on the same underlying data. So I think local SEO is something that tactically is staying pretty stable. For now, organic position 1 rankings on commercial search, you might be surprised with this, because I just told you, for AIOs have gone up a lot. There's this 6% to 12%. AIOs have gone up a lot for commercial queries. But actually, they've done that mainly by cannibalizing things other than organic for those position 1 placements. Organic position 1 in commercial is actually doing okay. I think this may change though. So the main story here is the top of funnel. Top of funnel is where it's the area that has been sort of most dramatically affected this year. And we haven't even talked yet about EU markets. Everything I've just shown you is based on UK and US. So for US, we have this 11 to 18%. That's quite big. This is close to that magic 75% number from the poll. For UK, it's more than triple, right? This is a more than 200% increase. And in EU markets that didn't even have AIOs in January and have now caught up, this is an infinity percent increase. Someone adds in the sidebar, are you referring to Google Ads as commercial, which has not changed? So when I talk about search keywords being commercial, I'm not talking about the features, I'm talking about the intent of the keyword. So it's like mid-funnel keywords I'm describing as commercial, regardless of whether they have ads against them or not. Although as it happens, you are obviously more likely to get ads further down the funnel. So let's talk about where this is going. And the elephant in the room for me is AI mode. So in case you've been hiding under a rock, This is what AI mode looks like. It's a tab in regular search in a lot of markets now, I think most markets now. And it can deal with the types of query that you could ask ChatGPT, but that would return a nonsense result if you ask them in regular organic. If you just type into regular Google search bar, write me an SQL snippet, you'll get a link to Stack Overflow maybe. The results can be pretty poor. Whereas this will actually write out arbitrary, never before seen SQL, even on nonsense queries like the one I've asked here. The trouble is, though, Google is saying that this might be a replacement for regular search. I think that's ambitious. The reason why I think that is ambitious is because AI mode is fundamentally a ChatGPT competitor. It deals well with the same kind of things that ChatGPT does well. And we've already seen over the last few years that the growth of ChatGPT has not really harmed organic. It's a different type of query. There's surprisingly little overlap. It's a different use case. And most people who use ChatGPT, overwhelmingly people who use ChatGPT are still using regular organic in the way they were as well. So I don't think we're necessarily saying that every type of regular organic query is better answered by AI mode. Indeed, that doesn't seem to be what the data suggests so far. And we can see this in the rollout data as well. This chart is going to be quite hard for you to read probably, but all of the little bars on this chart are different search verticals. So at the top of Google search, it's like AI mode, all images, news, video, you've got those tabs. This is showing the relative popularity of those tabs. And the long story short is that even a while after rollout, AI mode is still less popular than the news tab. And the news tab is already sort of famously unpopular. So this isn't a big deal. So someone asked in the sidebar a really good question. Is Google not losing a bunch of money from this? How are they making up their click revenue? So the answer to that is that is why a lot of these AI results are appearing like informational queries, because informational queries are already not monetized. As they move further down the funnel, you're absolutely right. They are going to have to find a way to monetize these AI results by generating a click. And that's something that we have to keep in mind, right? That this sort of zero click, meaning AI, those things aren't going to be synonymous forever because Google can't afford for them to be synonymous forever. Anyway, so what I'm saying here is that AI mode to me looks like a complement, not a replacement for regular search. That said, Google does some weird stuff lately that's often not in their best interests. They are far harder to predict than they were in previous years. One last ray of hope for you in terms of the future of Google search. The AIOs are sort of gradually moving down the SERP. We're used to AIOs being exclusively in position 1, but increasingly that's not the case. So this is an example of an AIO view appearing in position 6 beneath a bunch of organic links. Weirdly, it's in the raw language as well. This is an example of an AIO appearing in position 3 beneath a bunch of image results. And generally speaking, so this chart shows what proportion of SERPs have a AIO in a low ranking position. So the blue line is AIOs beneath position 2, and the green line is AIOs beneath position 4. So we can see this trend where AI overviews, Google is experimenting with pushing them down. And at this point, this is quite a large, this is something like, it's a double-digit percentage of AI overviews are not in position 1. So this isn't just some small volume test by Google. This is the direction they're moving. And someone asked, is it a test? Normally when we see tests from Google, they're less than 1% of SERPs for a few weeks, not 10 to 14% for months. Anecdotally as well, if you're going to Search Labs, which is the Google beta experience, this trend is even more pronounced there, and that tends to be an indication of where things are going. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that either, Arno, but it's sort of interesting to see some of the possibilities here. There's also this web guides feature in Search Labs. So this is kind of a hybrid of the two, where you've got regular organic, then regular organic, and then this hybrid result, which looks a bit like an AI mode response, except it also has, you can just see at the bottom, it also has some regular organic listings in it too. So this is the kind of hybrid that I think actually would be pretty welcomed by SEOs, because this looks to me a lot clickier than an AIOs view as a whole. Right, so tactically, what does this mean? I think as SEOs, we sort of have to pick up a path here. Some businesses will be positioned to pick both, and that's good for them. But in a lot of cases, we'll have to pick a path. So either we can resist change, we can keep optimizing for clicks, come what may. And obviously, like I mentioned, if you're in the kind of business where clicks are everything, then you have to do that, right? Or we can embrace change and we can optimize for impressions. So let's think a little bit about what those two options actually mean and why I'm showing them like this. So option one, resisting change, carrying on optimizing for clicks. What would that mean? So first, you're going to have to diversify your channels because Google is a lot less clicky than it used to be. So email and YouTube remain sort of strong top of funnel channels where you can monetize them with in-medium advertising. So in a lot of the things that you might have been doing historically with top of funnel organic as a publisher, you perhaps should look at these channels as alternatives. You also have to try and work your way down the funnel a little bit because that's where Google is still sending clicks, because that's where Google is financially incentivized to still send clicks, as someone was asking a moment ago. So I already said, organic commercial is holding up better than organic in other parts of the funnel right now. And this is those sort of mid-funnel terms. So if you're currently doing organic top of funnel, maybe you can think about moving your way a little bit further down into some of those comparison terms, for example. Perhaps e-com is the new affiliate in that sense. But I do think AI is coming for this area as well. Some of you would have seen if ChatGPT, for example, rolled out Shopify integrations and Etsy integrations this week. So this is by no means a safe play. And then step three, you can do keyword research in a way that you're trying to avoid keywords with these big top of search features. So for example, this is a filter applied in Stat. You can do this in your own platform if you don't use Stat. This is a filter applied in Stat where we're only looking for informational queries that don't have an AI overview. So you could conduct your keyword research in this way, but the trouble is, again, this is a rapidly changing reality. So yeah, how long will these fixes last? The second path that you could choose would be to embrace change and to optimize for impressions. Start to see SEO not as a performance marketing channel, but as a brand marketing channel. So, I'll absolutely skip slide. So in this case, you would still diversify, but now you'd be doing it to build up brand authority. So you might still do YouTube, but now you're doing it to sort of increase the recognition of your brand so that more people recognize you in regular organic or in other spaces when they come to make that commercial query later. You would probably, in this case, do some offsite and PR efforts as well with similar budget. Even though these are still traditional SEO tactics, you might now do them with different emphasis. And you probably also, if you're looking at SEO as a brand marketing channel, that's when you're probably interested in geo, because geo is all about the mentions, right, as opposed to clicks. So that brings us to AI search and how that's looking right now. Now, the nice thing is that a lot of these AI search engines are still based heavily on Google search. So AI Mode works by doing a bunch of Google searches for you. ChatGPT weirdly also works by doing a bunch of Google searches for you. So all that regular organic work you were doing very much is still going to have show up in these places. I think a crucial distinction that SEO is in-model versus out-of-model responses. So when you ask, for example, ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity a query, there's one of two things that can happen. If it thinks it can answer your question without doing any further sort of external research, that's called an in-model response. And the way that tactically you would affect an in-model response is to affect the training data, and that might take years to make a difference, honestly. However, if it makes a follow-up Google search, which it does in ChatGPT's case about half the time, it will then do some Google searches for you and aggregate what it finds. Then that obviously is something that you're in much better position to tactically affect, and that's called an out-of-model or a grounded response. Chris Green, who is someone you should very much follow in the space, he's written this great breakdown of sort of how ChatGPT decides whether it's going to make that external query or not. So at the moment, tactically, geo is mostly about influencing these sort of external references. So you want it to be the case that when ChatGPT makes that external Google search and it looks at some third-party sites talking about your brand, that you're appearing in those third-party articles. So this is offsite PR, basically. The other critical thing that we should talk about in that vein is mentions versus citations. So this is an example from ChatGPT, and you can see that if I was Audi, then I've got a brand mention here. Estate cars with water-cooled alternators, very niche and specific, but I've got this brand mention in blue for Audi. But there's also a car part site that has got the citation. So if I was Audi, I would be looking to be mentioned on this car part site that I've highlighted in red, right? So that's, they're looking for the brand mention, not the click, but that link is not to where they're hoping that Audi.com would appear. That link is their tactical information. It's where they need to optimize. It's where they need to reach out to the person that controls that site and make sure they have the most up-to-date information. So there's sort of three key challenges here for AI search. One is keyword research, which is vastly different. One is the concept of a ranking, because as I just mentioned, we're not necessarily looking for a link to Audi.com here if we're Audi. And the third is that relatedly that we're looking for these brand mentions. So we have to figure out what that means. Right, so let's go through these one at a time. Prompt research. Most SEOs are pretty familiar with keyword research. It's sort of a basic, very well understood, classic junior SEO task. Prompt research is new and different, though. You can use ChatGPT by typing in a head term and hitting enter, but no one really does. I'm not going to go to ChatGPT, type laptops, and hit enter, even though I probably would do that in Google search, or maybe something quite like it. So you have to cater to this difference. I really don't like seeing people just copy their regular keyword research and call it their AI keyword research, because it's not going to work like that. AI search is super dominated by the very, very, very long tail in a way that we're not used to in Google. And that also means that volume data is a little bit spurious. One tip that we found very useful and that we also leverage in our tools is people also ask data can be really instructive, because that gives you some real long tail queries that people are asking. And okay, they're asking it somewhere else. But this is sort of a clue as to the kind of things that people might be asking in AI search. In Stat, we have a sort of query fan out model that also does something similar. It's in terms of generating plausible or where possible real questions that the people might be asking about your topic or brand. So problem 2, what is a ranking? It can be really difficult to quantify when we're looking at mentions what counts. So this is a question and a ChatGPT response about laptops. There's 3 brands here, Dell, Lenovo, and Apple, but you'd be hard pressed okay, so Dell is the one that's mentioned third, but it's also the one that's mentioned the most times. How did it rank? It's kind of subjective, right? Incidentally, note that the tone of voice is sycophantic throughout. There's no real tone of difference in how the 3 are mentioned. So yeah, do you prefer to be mentioned first, most, best, biggest? It's not as simple as regular organic rankings. At the moment in Stat, we're reporting on a variety of metrics, so you can sort of pick your own one. We're reporting on how far down you mentioned. We're reporting on how often, how many different responses mention you, what you're mentioned with. We're also working on a sort of share of voice score. So there's a variety of ways that you can look at this. Then problem 3 is, as I said, we're looking for mentions, not domains. I really don't want people looking to be cited as if that's the goal. Being cited is tactical. The goal is to have your brand mentioned. This is a brand marketing channel. So again, this creates problems because in most cases, your brands and your domains don't have a one-to-one relationship. Think about Moz.com. Moz.com has multiple brands associated with it. Okay, there's Moz, yes, but there's also Mozcom, Domain Authority, Link Explorer. There's a variety of different things that would be branded terms for Moz.com, so we'd have to think about that a little bit differently. So tactically, what does that mean? So if you want to embrace SEO as impression first, and I suggest you should, then SEO and geo start to look a bit more alike. The biggest difference is going to be about mindset. So you have these sort of different things that you have to to measure and aim for. So if previously you were aiming for clicks, domain authority, rankings, now you're aiming for impressions, brand authority, visibility. And the good thing is that everything on the right is also still important for SEO. In fact, more important for SEO than ever. Tactically, you might produce a similar contrast where previously you were focused on on-site content. Now you're going to be focused on off-site content to influence those citations. Previously, you do digital PR for links, now for mentions. Previously, you might do some sort of crawling and equity optimizations for PageRank. Now you might do technical hygiene to make sure that LLMs can digest your content easily. So there's sort of a different, it's very similar, but a sort of different emphasis in the same sense. Lastly, I just want to talk about what the opportunity cost is here. Because at the moment, generative AI hallucinates, it's vulnerable to spam. That makes it quite unattractive in some ways as a channel to focus on. But if you're not tracking your presence, then you have no idea whether that stuff happening. You'd rather know at least that you're being represented in some way, even if what you find out is that you're being represented wrongly and you need to correct it. Your competitor's going to do this. Whether or not you do this, your competitors will. So my view would be that, okay, we're at a very early stage right now for geo as a tactic, but that means that this is the right stage to set your baseline for measurement. So this is the right stage to start tracking, even if you're not going to get tactically stuck in right away. For now, SEO remains critical. I'm absolutely not saying stop doing SEO. Everything you're doing before is still valuable. As always with SEO, this is just a case of do more. But start measuring these new channels because then you'll have a baseline and then you have something to start from. Right, so we've reached the point where we have that choose your own adventure. So either you can stay here and we'll do some Q&A from the sidebar. And thanks, I've seen lots of great questions already. Or there should be a breakout link appearing soon. And if you click on the breakout link, then you'll see a sort of demo in application of how you can answer some of these questions in stats.
Awesome. So for those of you that are stuck with Tom and I, we're going to be going over some of the Q&A that came in. Thank you, everyone, for participating and asking questions. And please feel free to continue to ask more questions as we're going down this rabbit hole. So to begin, Tom, you had showed examples of Google AIOs appearing further down in the results.
Yeah.
Do you feel that is because of user behavior where users are now used to seeing at the top and they scroll because they're based upon their comfort zone of seeing normal Google results? And what are your thoughts on that behavior from the Google side?
I think it's really interesting. So one thing that's worth bearing in mind is about 25% of the time when we see an AIO further down, it's on a branded query. In fact, I think both of the examples I shared in this deck were branded. So to me, what that says is that for a lot of the queries that Google is choosing to move the AIO down for, it's because they're really confident that you want to click that first organic link and that's actually the right answer. And the AIO is just further down for if that wasn't the right answer for you. So it's kind of, they're probably responding to their own click data on this. What's also interesting is that Bing, you might remember, what was it, like a year and a half ago, more, Bing beat Google to the punch with these AI search results by a long shot, right? They had good AI results way earlier, way better. And to all the public, not just in beta, you remember that Google had this old SGE. Yes. Bing have also moved their AI results down over time. So if you go and look at Bing search now, you'll see that AI results are a bit less common. They're still, Bing's AI results are quite good, actually. But they're often appearing in position 5, 6, 7. So I think that both search engines are sort of figuring out when the AI summary is actually what you want to see or what buyers do.
Gotcha. Next question that comes in from Chris. Chris asks, isn't Google losing a bunch of money from AI mode and integrating AI? And how are they making up, or how are they producing click revenue or ad revenue from these results?
It's a great question. Google is for sure losing money on a lot of this because it's expensive for them to generate their responses. But I mean, if you think about it, this isn't a new paradigm for Google. If you think even before all of this AI stuff, go back a few years, if you search for say if you search for the weather forecast on Google, they would show you an insert, not AI powered, it was from weather.com typically, an insert weather result that was quite detailed, custom, quite interactive. That cost them money to make, and it wasn't monetized at all. And this was sort of a loss leader to keep you in the Google ecosystem. So that when you did want to make one of those commercial queries, you would click on an ad perhaps. And I think these AI summaries at the moment are exactly the same sort of calculus. Google is generating an expensive result that isn't monetized because they want you to use Google and not some other AI search engine. Same with AI mode. AI mode is not monetized. They want you to stay in the Google ecosystem using Google so that when you do make commercial queries, they can monetize. That said, it is possible now in Google Ads to have your ad appearing in AI overviews or in AI responses. So they will also move towards monetizing these. But yeah, right now I would view it as a loss leader.
Got you. Next question that comes in is, what kind of impact or influence do social media platforms and or Q&A forum and discussion platforms such as Reddit have in the AI overviews section? Since Reddit is typically featured in ChatGPT and Google AI overview results.
And regular search, right? Reddit is everywhere right now. I think you would be, it's a really challenging marketing channel to engage with for a lot of companies. But yeah, I think you have to have some awareness of how you play out on Reddit now and some kind of strategy for that, because it's everywhere. It's so critical. The other big one is LinkedIn Pulse. Now, particularly in overviews and also in ChatGPT, LinkedIn Pulse gets referenced a lot, and I kind of hate that because I kind of hate LinkedIn. But you got to do what you got to do. So,
got you. Speaking of B2B and LinkedIn, Laura mentions that she notices a lot of the low quality directory listings and the AI overviews for B2B clients, whether it's low quality directories or maybe even like affiliate or paid listicles that are set up. Are these directory listings and listicles going to be important for getting listed in AI overviews? And just to add on, where is the gray line between some of the traditional outreach, like you presented with Audi, and then also getting more visibility by running ads with some of these publishers?
I mean, you're going to have to do both, right? But so I think to handle the first part, I think that was remind me. What was I'm struggling to break out the two questions.
Basically, are these directory listings and listicles going to be important for getting listed in AI overviews? And what's your best approach with those?
But with AI overviews, there's a 90-something% overlap between AI overviews and the organic top 10. And there's a 60% overlap between AI overviews and the organic top 3 even. So really, things that don't work to get you appearing in the organic top 10, such as some of these more obscure directories, aren't worth worrying about too much for AI overviews. That said, it can be a bit different for things like ChatGPT or AI mode, but those platforms do give you their citations. So really, this is going to be a question that varies from case to case. And you just want to be tracking the prompts that you think are relevant to your business, and you want to be seeing who the citations are. Because if the citations include these directories, then yeah, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to play in that space.
Yeah.
If they don't, then you won't.
Interesting. Scarlett asks, for agencies implementing a GEO first strategy for new clients, what are the most crucial KPIs to report on, especially clients that may have a limited budget?
Yeah. So firstly, I don't think it's time yet to implement a geo first strategy for clients. This is still a channel with a much lower opportunity than regular organic. I think it's time to start measuring. I think it's time to start thinking about which tactics apply to both. But I don't think it's time to be geo first. I think that would be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves at the moment. In terms of KPIs, though, for me, as I say, you should measure this like a brand channel. So you should be looking at how often your brand is mentioned in responses, and you should be looking at how your brand is mentioned in responses, which is sort of the kind of, it's how historically, as in before digital even, we might have talked about things like PR, right? You might have talked about it in a similar way. And this is really that kind of channel.
Got you. That makes sense. Follow-up question. At this point, how accurate or reliable are AI tracking tools for measuring brand visibility? This is from Caleb. Most that Caleb has looked into are focused on citations as opposed to mentions. Moreover, most of these tools require the use of synthetic prompts, which appear to be problematic, especially when considering the high level of personalization that affects responses AI models provide to each individual. So going back to the original question here, how accurate or reliable are these tracking tools with measuring brand visibility?
Yeah, Caleb sounds like a man after my heart, to be honest. I totally agree with, and those are both problems that we've been sort of very aware of in how we've approached this and very concerned about in how we've approached this. The way that we're approaching it in-app, and we're not the only ones, but the way that we're approaching it in-app is to be very much mention-focused and to produce plausible prompts. So we obviously, one of the benefits of also being a traditional SEO tool, we're also Stat, we're also Moz, is that we have that wealth of data on keywords, on PAAs, on historic volumes. So we are in a reasonable position to say what is and isn't a possible question. But it is a big challenge. And right now, I would be very wary of anyone that is selling you prompt volume data. I've spoken to some of the vendors in the industry that are trying to sell this data to tools so that tools can sell it to their users. And really, it's every single prompt has a volume of 1 or 0 because these are so long tail. There is a lot more work that needs to be done here in the industry by people like ourselves, and we are working on it. But there is a lot more work that needs to be done here in terms of topical grouping and this kind of thing to produce plausible prompt research data. At the moment, we give you plausible prompts, and we're trying to help you out with that step because we know it's difficult, but we're not giving you volume data for these prompts because if we did, we would really be lying to you. So I think it's something that you have to be careful of at the moment.
Yeah, just kind of adding to that, one frustration that I know I have personally is that some of the tools I utilize will say that we're in the AI overview for specific queries, right? And then typically that could be either as a resource, as a citation, or just listed there, and then actually capturing that. So we'll capture the screen we'll have the screen capture that the tool provides, but then very seldom are you able to reproduce that live, right? Because it does seem to be a very dynamic flow on that side. So definitely a challenge on that end.
I just wanted to, I can see a few people asking, one of which is my good friend, Zach. Hello, Zach. Whether the slides will be available. If you register for the webinar, you'll get them by email. So you don't need to worry about that.
Thanks for answering that. Next question that comes in from Emily. Are news sites and blogs that rely on traffic for profitability a dying breed?
Oh, that's a big question. I don't think they're a dying breed, but I do think that space is changing rapidly. In a lot of cases, so I guess there's two paths to these kinds of businesses. One is to paywall, and if you're the kind of site that has the level of quality and the level of demand that you can make a paywall work, it looks better than it ever has. Honestly, I think paywalling makes a ton of sense, and I was someone that 5 years ago would have told you the opposite. So I was wrong. Paywalling is smart if you can do it. A lot of people can't do it though. Trevor, there's a lot of types of publisher where paywalling doesn't make sense because they're not designed around that kind of sustained usage model. So in those cases, you have to think about other ways that you can monetize. So I talked about, for example, YouTube and email as being a channel where you can still sell ads embedded in your placements, embedded in your content. You can also, if these people are saying, if digital PRs are saying, they're going to be reaching out to sites to make sure that their brands talked about in favorable ways, then, paid articles and paid placements, as long as they're done in a transparent and respectful way are also going to be a thing that publishers might consider. And then there's other sort of alternative monetization models, such as media partnerships or whatever it might be. I don't want to go too deeply into that because it varies so much from one site to the next. For transparency, a lot of Moz is owned by a company called Ziff Davis. It's a listen publishing conglomerate. A lot of our sister companies are publishers. None of them consider this to be an existential crisis, but it is a challenge, and they're all approaching it differently.
Yeah, and then speaking from our side too, being a B2B publication at SEJ, over the years we transitioned from a display ad model into lead generation model, and that really helped because the traffic that we get is a lot more targeted, right? So if that traffic is targeted to your ICPs, and basically Google's party line, so to speak, has been that the AIOs help to pre-qualify traffic, right? Educate and pre-qualify traffic, so by the time you get it, it's a little bit more valuable. So it's definitely helped on our end from there as well. How important are listings on external sites or review sites such as Yelp and Better Business Bureau with and moving forward in terms of an external optimization standpoint with AI overviews?
I think they are going to be important. Maybe not so much for AI overviews, but for some of those other LLM response types, such as AI mode, such as ChatGPT or Perplexity. However, whether they're important for you specifically is something that you need to ascertain with your own data, because I don't know what topics and prompts you're looking for, right? So you need to go and look at who is being cited in the out-of-model responses that mention your brand. And if the answer to that question is Yelp, I've got bad news for you. You got to appear in Yelp.
Speaking of Yelp, and you kind of went over local a little bit in the presentation, but how is any of this impacting local SEO? I saw something the other day on Search Engine Roundtable. It was probably on SEJ as well, but I may have missed it. Of AI overviews being implemented in the local maps themselves as part of that. How impactful this is going to be to local SEO, and how right now can people get ahead of the curve?
I think local SEO is one of the least impacted channels, not because AI isn't being leveraged in responses in local search, or not because local search isn't being leveraged in AI responses. Both are very much true, right? It's not untouched. It's just that tactically it stays kind of the same, because Google is using the same underlying listings data and review data in both spaces, in regular search and in these new response types. So I think you should be tracking this stuff if you work in local SEO, absolutely. But tactically, would you be doing anything differently? Right now, I can't actually think of something that I would say that tactically local SEO should do super differently, because they've been working on these offsite citations for years, right? That's been their whole thing.
Yes, absolutely. Next question that comes in. We've discussed a bit about offsite content, such as directory listing, listicles, reviews, whatever it may be. But are there any on-site content tactics that work specifically for AEO or AI overviews or whatever it may be?
I think yes, but you have to be careful here, because there's been a lot of studies showing that, and frankly, this stuff worked for regular SEO as well. There's been a lot of studies showing that, presenting your content in a way that is sort of easy to digest and easy to present as the answer to a question. This kind of thing, the same kind of thing you might have done with feature snippet optimization, looks to work quite well. But the reason I say you have to be careful is because there's a mindset problem here, where as SEOs, especially in the sort of medic era, like since 2018, we've been really focused on on-site content as the solution to all problems, as if that's all that we do almost. And that's just not, that wasn't the case with SEO before. It wasn't really the case with SEO in the last few years, and especially won't be the case going forwards. You cannot win in geo or AEO or SEO by doing on-site content only. It is not going to work. So yes, there are things you can do to make sure your content is digestible, but that work is probably going to benefit most of the third-party brands that you mention in your content. and content that you have on other people's websites is going to be far more.
Got you. Taking this a little bit of a different direction, what are your thoughts on LLMs.txt files? Are they useful, important? Should we be stuffing them with every single page on the site or just a preview? What are your thoughts on that?
Whatever, server cat picture. I think LLMs.txt is wishful thinking. You can't just invent a standard and then expect anyone to follow it. And the same, I don't know if you've seen the recent cat.txt.
That's
cat.txt,
okay.
Which is basically the same idea, except more explicitly absurd. And then Cloudflare came out last week, or was it the start? No, I think it was last week, and said, oh, we think you should add into your robots.txt file as a comment some guidance for LLMs on how they can and can't use your data. All of this stuff is a wonderful idea, but only if LLMs and search engines actually honor it, which they won't. So, yeah, sorry, lovely idea, doesn't do anything.
We had some questions come up about LinkedIn Pulse when you mentioned that and their success in LLMs or AIO. Could you get a bit deeper into what LinkedIn Pulse is and any strategies that can help the users, influence AIO results with LinkedIn Pulse?
Yeah, so I am not a LinkedIn expert, but so basically, because what a lot of these engines are trying to do is they want to see resources that aren't from your site that tell them about your brand, because a third-party explanation is more credible than a first-party explanation, right? And one of the domain, the risk of controversy, they look for, I will phrase this carefully, they look for domains with high authority to get these third-party pieces of information from. And would you know it, LinkedIn.com has a very high authority. So this is, LinkedIn Pulse is just sort of a micro-blogging platform, a bit like Medium that exists on LinkedIn, where you can get an indexed page instead of putting it on your own blog, for example. And you could use LinkedIn Pulse to answer some questions about your brand in a context that is seen as authoritative, and obviously you need to write it in a way that seems reasonably neutral and not just like sponsored content. But yeah, it's along with medium.com as well. And I don't know whether you could argue this is a bit of a loophole in the way that these models are, judging these domains. They don't have Google's level of experience with how to handle parasite content and this kind of thing. But at the moment, this looks like one of the sort of easier things that you can do to get started.
Gotcha. I also know that for some of the research that I've done on B2B SaaS-oriented brands, LinkedIn and Medium are the most influential and most cited third parties out there.
Along with
Medium publishing too, because I haven't thought about Medium for years.
Same.
Yeah, next to be Dig and some other platforms. Does it? When you're optimizing for AIOs, does it make sense to optimize for different personas or ICPs and the content, whether it's hosted on-site or third-party hosted content?
Optimize for some different percent.
I think this gets into the whole personalization of the AI.
I think it depends how you look at that. Like, the way I would read that question is, do you need to speak to different user intents? Mm-hmm. I apologize. I realize that's a slightly reductive lens, but the answer to that question is clearly yes, right? Like, if we rephrase it in that way, it's an obvious yes. If we look at personas more as do you need to speak in a different tone of voice to different people for the sake of geo-optimization? Probably not. Like ChatGPT doesn't care what your tone of voice was hugely, as long as it wasn't something ridiculous.
Got you. Julia asks, how are we able to influence AI authority preferences in sourcing, as well as its reliance on third-party forums? So, in regard to corporate reputation, right? So this goes into reputation, sentiment, things like that. What are some tips you would have with participating in some of these third-party forums where perhaps the corporate reputation is a bit negative that's shown either in the AIOs or your discussions and forums section?
Yeah, there's two parts to this question. So the authoritative sourcing, so I spoke previously about domains with high authority in a slightly usualistic way. The way that these LLMs, whether they be Google or not, the way that they work is definitely to trust certain websites more than others. And frankly, we don't know this for a fact, but it is very, very likely that link signals are part of that. And it is very, very likely that brand signals are part of that. So that's all of the authority signals you're used to dealing with as an SEO, right? Like it's the same sort of game that we're playing here, especially because in a lot of cases, all that these models do is conduct a bunch of Google searches and aggregate the results from you. And how do Google searches work? You know the answer to that question, right? So it's the same kind of authority signals we're used to using. In terms of your corporate reputation on some of these platforms like Reddit, yeah, that's really difficult. But also that's kind of a microcosm of the actual problems your company has, right? Like if you go on Reddit and find that people hate your product, that's real. This isn't a blip in your marketing tactics. This is something that you actually need to solve as a company. And the reason why a lot of these platforms, Google, ChatGPT, humans, love Reddit data is because there is that veneer of honesty.
Would you recommend a company participates transparently in that Reddit discussion, since people, I would imagine, are clicking over to the thread itself, maybe addressing the solution, letting people know that they're taking this to heart, whatever it may be. Perhaps an update has come out that addresses those issues. What are your thoughts there?
It's a great question. And honestly, I don't know. Like, I'm not a crisis comms guy, and that's not my background. But I would love to see SDJ host a webinar on this question. I would attend that for sure. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, I don't know what the best way to engage is. Should you stay out of it? Should you engage transparently? Should you pay influencers?
And final question is something I've dealt with as well. Sometimes the information that's shown in AIOs or other, GPT, Perplexity, other responses are not always accurate. Sometimes there's third-party information that's being brought in, outdated pricing information, whatever it may be, and sometimes even hallucinations. What are some? How do sites protect against that? And what are some strategies that you would recommend?
Have a look at the citations. Reach out to those websites. Maybe the information on those websites wasn't even wrong, but it just had gaps in it that gave the AI room to hallucinate, right? So reach out to those websites and say, hey, I noticed you wrote about my brand, really appreciate it. And would you mind, here's some updated information. I'd love if you could do that. And it's so like, if you've worked in SEO for a while, like I have, you're used to this kind of conversation being really hard, because then you say, and can I have a do follow link? But now you don't have to say, right, and can I have the do follow link, which means that the journalist is way more likely to engage with you, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I like to ask for the do follow link after they've made the changes, not in the initial email. Yeah. So, but yes, good point. And I think we've had everyone come in from the breakout room / the choose your own adventure room. So, Tom, we have like a minute left. Where can folks find you online? And just to let everyone know, for any questions that we did not get answered, we will be sending them over to Tom, and he'll be staying up late tonight answering them all. And we'll be sure to all attendees, along with the slides and the video from today's presentation. Yeah.
So the easiest place to get in touch with me is on Blue Sky or LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find on those platforms. You'll all be, if you're in this room, you'll all be emailed the deck. The deck has some contact details for me. It also has a bunch of information, and there's some handouts on the side which have deeper information as well. So there's lots of places you can sort of follow up on that. And lastly, if you're interested in seeing any of the stuff we talked about today put into practice, either maybe you already went to the breakout room or you didn't go to the breakout room, but you're interested as well. Obviously, the getstat.com website has links where you can sign up for that kind of thing.
Amazing. Tom, it's always a pleasure. Great having you today, especially after your long flight. So you did great.
Yeah, a pleasure as always. Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll be following up and looking forward to our next SEJ webinar. Thank you to Tom Capper and the team at Stat and Moz for making today happen, and enjoy the rest of your morning. Thank you.